photographers. This is the Fujifilm X-H1, released in February 2018. Each time Fujifilm releases a new model, many of you comment that you'll wait for the X-H2. I have no information about that. And as time goes by, it seems less and less likely. But Sonam suggested that I should have another look at the X-H1 and let you know how it's holding up. With price reductions, it's an interesting buy new, even better used. So I was very excited when Fujifilm invited me to pick up a pre-release review unit. But when it was released, the firmware was so flaky, I put it aside and waited for 7 months and 2 firmware updates before I completed my review. Well, now I own one, and it's my go-to for video production using the 16 to 55mm lens. It's been reliable, used for literally hundreds of videos. And when I'm not reviewing another model, it's also my still camera with nice independence between the two modes. And I've looked at a lot of cameras since, but I've not yet felt the need to replace it. And there have been several more firmware upgrades. In October 2021, we're at 2.13. Upgrades added features like focus bracketing and improved stabilization. It now does USB video streaming. The issue I had using an external monitor in my review has also been fixed. Now, the X-H1 is not the latest or greatest, but remains a very respectable camera. The version 3 APS-C X-Trans sensor has 24 megapixel resolution. More recent models have the version 4 sensor, but there are no dramatic improvements in resolution or low-light performance. And on the video side, it supports 4K in both cinema and TV resolutions, data rates up to 200 megabits, 8-bit 422 on HDMI. Also very respectable. Recent models have higher data rates and do 10-bit internal and external. But let's go back to the basics for a minute. At over 650 grams, this is no lightweight camera. And the battery grip adds another 400 grams. It's essential for video production. And while I don't like the weight, for video it's usually on a tripod. And without the grip, I've certainly carried it around enough to know that it's a manageable trade-off. So the big grip on the front and the nice, good-sized thumb rest on the back make it very pleasant to hold, for my hands anyway. And it's weather-sealed. Then, with the battery grip, it's ideal for portrait mode shooting, particularly with the flip-up screen. In landscape, it flips up and down, but doesn't rotate forward, a disadvantage for on-camera creators. But in several ways, size is its advantage. Lenses don't extend below the base plate, which means they don't get jammed on a tripod quick release plate. And on a tripod, there's still lots of room to change batteries without removing the quick release. Well, in practice, I find physical controls really make a difference. There's the dial dedicated to shutter duration. Another for ISO, and both have a lock button to prevent accidental adjustments. Now, nearly all Fujifilm lenses have a ring to set the aperture, and those controls make a PASM dial redundant. There's focus selection in front, very useful, handy and functional. Some newer models don't have it. I miss it. And a switch beside the viewfinder selects the view mode. So much nicer than changing a setting in the menu. There's a drive collar under the ISO, meter setting collar under the shutter. These truly simplify checking the current setting and changing it. And the meter collar was apparently not as successful as I thought. It's missing from newer models. And Fujifilm is still making drive mode selection adjustments. There's the joystick to set the focus point, but it's also useful for screen selection and navigation functions. Less novel now than when it was new. And while most cameras with a joystick have eliminated the D-pad, it's still here. I'm always using the left key for film sim and set white balance with the right. Many cameras have removed all controls to the right side, but left is the ideal placement for playback and delete. And while other dials might mean that front and back dials aren't required, they are there, and useful for auxiliary functions like setting interstop shutter durations. There's a dedicated AF-on key for back button focus, and note that it works even when the X-H1 is in manual focus mode. Now, I'm not convinced I need the top panel status display. Honestly, I rarely look at it, but it can be useful to check remaining battery and card space without turning the camera on. Now, the X-H1 and its grip use the older 126S battery. The newest battery, 235, has nearly double the capacity. But in my experience, carrying an extra battery isn't that big a deal, and the battery grip means you've got 3 batteries worth of action. And when the battery grip is plugged into AC, as it is here in the studio, it will easily shoot all day, even without batteries in the grip. And the grip extends video time limit to 30 minutes. Now, although I rarely run into this artificial limit, I would still appreciate if it was completely eliminated. Well, the X-H1 maxes to 325 focus points, which doesn't cover quite as much of the screen as the 425 on newer models. However, the central points are phase detect, left and right are contrast. Newer models are all phase. Nevertheless, speedy and reliable. The focus point selection system, press the joystick, use the dial to size and the joystick to position, works nicely. The only thing simpler is touch focus, which the X-H1 also does well. In the original review, I demonstrated the odd background pulsing in autofocus. And for this update, I checked that again. And in some firmware update, that issue must have been fixed. It's much less obvious and frequent. However, face detect, remember that eye detect isn't available in video mode on the X-H1, continues to have trouble when I put my glasses on. I'll continue to use manual focus, but when that's not possible, auto works better than it did. So I do use the movie silent control, called movie optimized control on newer models, primarily because of the additional still video independence it provides, but sometimes I find it cumbersome. And here's the thing, if you take a memory card out or put a new one in, the camera shuts down. That's slightly annoying. That's been fixed on newer cameras. And there is still the occasional random stop when recording video. And then when the camera switches from one grip battery to the other, it always stops recording. But my X-H1 has never overheated. And the X-H1 is not without issues. The shutter release is too soft. Particularly in video mode, the softest touch starts recording, although I did hear that Fujifilm has a fix for that if I send it in for repair. The camera has been free of defects. Recently, though, the battery grip always thinks battery R is depleted whether it's charged or not. And I do have some requests. If there is another XH series model in the works, number 1, remove that video record limit. 30 minutes is lots for many occasions, but sometimes it's not. Or for those who like it, let me set a maximum clip length with infinity as an option. Yes, I know I can record externally without limit. Now, obviously, the updated video features on the X-T4, H.265, all intra, 400 megabit, 10-bit HLG, and 10 times slow, the X-H1 has 5, should all be included, as well as the fully articulated screen, USB-C power, that new battery, and dual video recording. The X-T4's stabilization is slightly improved with optically stabilized lenses, a stop or more with non-stabilized lenses. What other features would you get with a newer Fujifilm camera? Even more independence between stills and video. Auto white balance options for white or ambience priority. More film simulations like nostalgic negative and Eterna bleach bypass. And a slightly faster burst, although I feel the 8 per second mechanical here, which has an essentially unlimited buffer, is still hard to beat. I like the integration and interactive tone control in newer models, and the chrome color and clarity settings. But you might be dealing with a PASM dial, which I've learned to live without. This system, I find it simpler, and I don't really want to return. Although the X-T4 doesn't have nostalgic negative, maybe it's fair to add yet to that, maybe not, the X-T4 really is the camera the X-H2 could have been. So I'm not sure that we'll see an X-H2. Except for a slight difference in size, not sure how an X-H2 would be differentiated. Another thing that's happened in the interim, Fujifilm has launched a very impressive set of wide aperture prime lenses, and third-party X-mount lenses with full autofocus support are appearing. Finally, if you care, my X-H1 was made in Japan. Not sure if later production was moved offshore. And if you are interested, please do watch my detailed 30-minute hands-on review. The link is in the description below. As my hashtag says, I'm not sponsored, so there are no interruptions while you're watching my videos. That decision has a financial impact, so I'm very grateful to those of you who've decided to sponsor this channel by becoming a member. And if membership is for you, please use the join button below. But subscribers need not worry. I have no plans to put content behind a paywall. And I do read and reply to all civil comments and relevant questions. Thanks for watching. Stay safe.